All right, folks, it is Friday, November the 1st. That's right, we're almost done with the year. We've got 2 more months to go this month and next month, and it will be into 2025. But we're also 4 days from the election. That's right, early voting is still continuing. I think there is today and tomorrow, and then folks will vote on the day of, which is November 5th. And then after that, we'll determine whether we have a vice president who becomes president or a president who returns to office. But either way, it'll be a new day in the White House coming up in 2025, and we'll see what folks have to say about that both here and around the world. In other news, Spain flood death toll hits 205 as Valencia opens temporary morgue. So definitely it looks like parts of Spain appear to merge with the sea after historic rain in uh, that area. And there were before and after images that definitely showed the devastation of that area. And there are still search for missing people that is continuing following Spain's deadliest flooding. And 8,000 of the troops that Kim Jong un sent to support Russia are about to hit the front line, according to the U.S. So the U.S. asked China to curb North Korean troops in Russia's Ukraine war. So that is something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And the Middle East latest, Israel pounds the Beirut suburb of Dayaha with airstrikes overnight. So that is something else that is in the news as well. So we're seeing that in the news and reported in the news. And North Korea boosts of the world's strongest missile, but experts say it's too big to use. So U.S. and allies stage air power drills in response to North Korea's ICBM test. So North Korea says record test with new Hwasong 19 intercontinental ballistic missile. So we'll see if this missile is something that is actually being able to be used or not used, and all along those lines. And Russia sentences a former U.S. consulate worker to nearly 5 years in prison. So that is something else we're seeing in the news as well. And a gunfight and a massive brawl in France seriously wound five. So it looks like shooting injures five and sparked a mass brawl. So that massive shootout sparked a battle between up to 600 people in France. And looks like the minister is condemning some of the folks that are there, including the country's Mexicana. So definitely it looks like there could be some gang involvement in this as well, if I'm reading that correctly. So it looks like a teenager was shot in the head in a mass brawl involving hundreds in the Western France part of the French nation and everything. And as famine stalks Gaza, farmers are lamenting their many losses. So Israel's siege in northern Gaza brings war's darkest moment. And there are some folks that are saying the world must act to prevent ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And that's something that Antonio Guterres is warning of as well. And it looks like a Dublin Halloween party hoax duped thousands into packing Ireland's capital street for nothing. So definitely there was apparently a hoax parade and chaos in Dublin. The thousands turned up for an AI hoax Halloween parade that didn't exist. So thousands turned up for something that wasn't happening at all. And a seismic change in Botswana as a party that ruled for 58 years has lost power. So Botswana voters voted out the ruling party that had been there in power for 58 years. So definitely the Botswana president conceded the election defeat, and the BDP has lost power after all of those years. A little bit less than the years I've been around and everything. So I guess they had power since, if I'm 62, that would have been like around 1966. So they've definitely been in power for a number of years. And Georgian election results make no statistical sense, according to Western pollsters. So Georgian opposition calls for more protests as exit pollsters say official results are impossible. So definitely we'll see how that goes as well. And South Africa's Steve Irwin, Graham Dingo Dingelman, is dead at 44 from a venomous snake bite. So apparently he died from that snake bite, and he was a popular YouTuber known as South Africa's Steve Irwin. So definitely he had been dealing with a lot of animals, and apparently one of those animals was venomous, and he passed away recently. And Typhoon Kangray moves from Taiwan to the Chinese coast. So looks like yesterday some planes failed to land amid that fierce typhoon in Taiwan. And a Taiwanese driver actually earlier recounted his narrow escape during Typhoon Congress. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And the Knesset has approved Israel's 2025 budget despite threats of opposition. So the 2025 state budget is to increase defense spending, cut social services and education, and it looks like they have approved that. So we'll see how that impacts both their war as well as their economy in that area. And Iranian officials are threatening retaliation for the Israeli strike. So that is something else that we're seeing as well. And British police have made an arrest in the theft of a rare $390,000 cheddar. That's a lot of cheese. So great cheese robbery. So London cheese cops have sniffed out $390,000 artisanal cheddar cheese thieves. So definitely it looks like they were arrested after stealing apparently 24 tons of cheddar, totaling about $390,000. And I've heard the nickname of cheddar for money and everything along those lines, but why somebody would actually want to steal the actual cheddar is beyond me. But maybe some people that are on the panel, maybe even Sasha's got an idea as why somebody would want to do that and all along those lines. The new Harris Forbes poll, Harris leads Trump by just 1 point. Net amounts to a statistical tie, as definitely 10% of the nation apparently are still weighing their options. So I guess that's 45 to 45 and 10% still trying to see what they would do. So with 4 days left, it looks like we're in a statistical tie, but we'll see how that all plays out as well. And a sergeant here in the United States was charged with murder after a sergeant was found dead in a dumpster at a Missouri base. So it looks like this sergeant has been charged in the death of Fort Leonard Wood Sergeant. So definitely it'll be interesting how this goes on, as the arrest was made in an alleged murder of a female soldier on the base. So apparently the person that is alleged to have killed this sergeant is a female soldier. And there are 2 toss-up races in California that are pushing Latino voters to the front line of the battle to control the House. So they're saying that even the land of the $1 million starter home could decide the fate of Congress. So it looks like there is some things going on around the nature of one of the houses of one of the candidates. But yeah, California is in the race, and Trump is attacking Liz Cheney using violent war imagery. So Trump uses violent rhetoric to attack war hawk Liz Cheney. So I have heard him using that, accusing her of being a war hawk because of her father and everything. And Trump suggests war hawk Liz Cheney should have guns trained on her face. So that's definitely some divisive comments made as well. And federal authorities are facing limits responding to 2024 election lies. So ahead of election day, the FBI finds itself in an awkward, challenging spot, officials say. So DOJ and FBI's limited scope on election lies and Obamacare for DACA recipients. So definitely see how this all plays out as well. So it looks like from Joy and J-Lo to insults and alpha males, Harris and Trump are zeroing in on Nevada. And right now it looks like Harris is up in Nevada by 1 percentage point, 48% to 47%, and all along those lines. So, and of course, the White House officials are altering the transcript of Biden garbage comment and all in that kind of space. So they're trying to adjust that. So the White House altered the Biden garbage transcript, and that's drawing a rebuke from the stenographer. So definitely looks like a lot's going on, including 2 dead and 6 wounded in a mass shooting during a Halloween celebration, an actual Halloween celebration, as opposed to the one that I just talked about. There was a fake Halloween celebration overseas in downtown Orlando. So in that shooting, a 17-year-old was arrested after at least 2 were killed doing that particular event. And a pregnant teenager died after trying to get care in 3 visits to Texas. So video investigation into Texas teen's death after pregnancy complications. So the Texas woman died after being denied miscarriage care due to abortion ban, according to a report that was out there as well. So we do know that abortion and some of the other issues, including the issue around gun control, have been issues that have been at the forefront of the election. So glad to have you with me, Sasha. Got Shaquille here and got Jacoby and Lee Rhodes in the background. We'll see if he decides to get on camera, if he just decides to comment from the sidelines and everything along those lines. And of course, Kimberly has joined as well. So what's your take on this election? We got 4 days to go. I think we got 2 more days of early voting, which is today and tomorrow. I don't think there's any on Sunday that I'm aware of. And then, of course, we've got the actual election on Tuesday. And like I said, right now, everybody's saying a statistical dead heat, which I think favors Trump if you go by the past and everything. But any thoughts about where we're heading in this particular election? And I do have Rick, that is our poll master.
Well, I'll start off firstly by thank you, Sasha, for the show yesterday, and maybe we'll have another one before election, maybe on Monday or something like that, so we can go through some economic issues again. But I very much enjoyed that, and look, as I said, I recognise why people would have some concerns about Trump's policies, especially with tariffs, but. We all have to sort of decide for ourselves what we think is best. And for you and me, we can make whatever decision we want to make, but neither of us going to vote. But as for like some of the things, as the only person here I'm not a Republican, but you guys all consider me one, so I'll just go with that for the moment. Come on, I want somebody here other than Jacoby to try and keep a straight face and tell me that when Biden said that the Trump supporters are garbage, there was an apostrophe in it. Come on now, seriously? Anyone want to keep a straight face and tell me that?
I haven't seen the clip, but he's got a 50-year career of misspeaking, so I don't know.
Okay, so he misspoke, and the way to prove that he misspoke is for me to say, well, you misunderstood what he said. There was an apostrophe.
No, I think honestly, I think it was a gaffe. It was something that he messed up on, which is fine. But to have any Trump supporter clutch their pearls and act like this is the worst thing in the world when Donald Trump just the day before had a racist rally. Donald Trump throughout the whole campaign has called Democrats vermin, enemies from within, calling for the military, all this stuff. So the clutching of the pearls over a gaffe that Biden made.
Well, I've got a gold chain. I don't have any pearls, sweetheart. But let me ask you. So it was a racist rally full of Jewish people and blacks and Hispanics. That was a racist rally.
Again, clutching of the pearls. Oh, Donald Trump said, "Well, Jews should be blamed if he loses." So please stop that. What I want to get to,
Trump just said that Liz Cheney should be put in front of a firing squad.
So all this clutching of the pearls, Shaq, I don't get with. Also, I think it was a gaffe, and it's going to hurt Kamala Harris because, again, with that separation piece. But then the next day, Donald Trump gave a win back to Kamala Harris by telling women that a man who has been found liable of sexual assault, which the judge called rape. He's also been he's been caught on audio saying that you can grab him by the blank. All these things.
So I'm not sure any of this. I'm not sure any of this is going to. I don't know that any of this is going to. More than 40% of the people who are going to vote have already turned in their ballots, and we've only got 3% undecided. And are they really paying attention? And
no, they're not. Of course, they're not. This election's probably already decided. I can't imagine that there's going to be very many people that are going to change their votes at this point, or like whatever they're intending to vote if they haven't voted already. They're probably not going to change their mind. And I expect, because for Tuesday's the election, it should be a national holiday. I'll tell you that right now. It should be moved to a Saturday, but if you can't do that to the Constitution, it should be a public holiday. I really do believe that. But that notwithstanding, this weekend you're going to see the rush of votes come in, I believe, right? That's where you're going to see all the votes come. But what I think I'm laughing at is, Jacoby's right and wrong, in my opinion. Did Biden make a gaffe? Yeah, but that's not actually the issue. That's not even really where the gaffe is. The gaffe is the media trying to bullshit everybody with this. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing. Oh, there was an apostrophe. Why not just come out and go, look, he said something he didn't quite mean to say. It's come out wrong, and he sort of misspoke. And, you know what Biden's like. He makes mistakes. And then Biden could have come out and said, "Yeah, look, that's not quite what I meant to say." For the same reason that when Tim Walz said on the debate stage, "I've made friends with school shooters." Okay, even the most hardcore right wingers know They're going to make fun of him for it, but they know that that's not what he meant to say, right? They know that he screwed up. But in this case, it's like, oh, no. There was an apostrophe. He was saying something else. Bullshit. Come on now.
Hold on a second. Both of you. Both of you.
For that. But then what Donald Trump does is double down. So you're complaining that a man who makes a gaffe and apologizes for it while supporting a man who doubles down to a point where literally hate crime spiked up under Donald Trump.
Hold on a second.
Springfield, Ohio was shut down because of Donald
Trump. According to your statement,
people had to move their location in North Carolina because of Trump, but yet you have no complaints there. Your whole clutching of the pearls. Yes, again, it's reminiscent of the deplorables moment from Hillary Clinton. However, the problem, yes, it is. However,
no, it's not. The right wingers that make out that is the equivalent of that are being mad.
However, again, you're clutching of the pearls over a gaffe, and then the man apologizes while you're still championing a man who literally doubles down on hate, had a racist rally that he has yet to actually separate himself from. He's called it a rally of love. So spare me.
Just really quickly.
Okay, let me respond, because you didn't want me to respond. So a couple of things, right? I just stated that right wingers that are comparing this to the deplorables comment are mad because it clearly wasn't. And Jacoby continued on with, I'm clutching at my pearls. Okay, then, cool. No problems, bro, but that's not what I said. Secondly, when Jacoby goes, this is a man that doubles down, he says that despite the fact that he's been accused and convicted of rape and this and that, he grabbed a woman by this and, he's going to be the great protector of women. Well, I don't think, and look, I'm happy to be stood corrected if you can show me the footage. I don't think that Donald Trump came out on stage and said, hey, everybody, I rape women and I'm a protector of women. I don't think he said that. Right, I think he would have said that a little bit differently. So what you're doing, is you're not being particularly ingenuous. And same thing with the whole thing of, well, it was a racist rally. Well, what's racist is subject to opinion. His campaign disavowed the comments about Puerto Rico. The people that were at the rally, are you speaking over me again? The people that were at the rally booed the comedian for the comment, and then he changed tune pretty quick and said something else. And there were people there that absolutely loved Trump. What do you want Trump to do? You want Trump to come out and say, hey guys, vote for me because I'm a racist, sexist, rapist, a woman abusing. I mean, get real. And if you want Trump to do that, then you should sit there and say, hey, all the criticism of Tim Walz and his tampons in boys' toilets and Kamala Harris's ridiculous ideas and her communist Marxist past and her I come from a middle-class family while her parents are professors at Ivy League universities, and she grew up in Canada and all the rest of it. Well, you put some emphasis on that, but you won't do that because you're going to make excuses for your side and you're going to pick on the other side. Right, that's what you're
a completely disingenuous argument, and all of us don't. I want to hear from everybody else rather than us dominating the conversation.
Can we talk about some different nonsense, like Tucker Carlson saying that he was attacked by demons? Hold on, please. So Tucker Carlson said that in his sleep, demons came and scratched him up, even though he sleeps with 4 dogs.
Maybe the dogs are named demons. I don't know. Didn't Joe Biden's uncle get eaten by a cannibal?
I don't know. That's some other nonsense that I didn't. Some of the nonsense. I mean, if it shows up on Twitter, I see it. If it's so I missed some of the nonsense.
Look, hey, Rick.
If you want to make the point that there are some like complete bloody nut jobs on the right, I'm there with you. I'm there with you.
These nut jobs are speaking at the rallies that are handpicked by Trump.
There are some nut jobs on the right, no question, right? Yeah. But if you guys are going to try and make out that your side, when they come out with some of the nuttiest, the most ridiculous comments, are all perfect, they're not. You got some nuts on your side. There's some nuts on the right.
This is another disingenuous.
It's disingenuous because the left is perfect. It's only the nut jobs on the right we've got to worry about.
Let me explain the comment again. Rick just pointed out Tucker Carlson saying something nutty. You couldn't even accept that. Tucker Carlson is speaking at Trump rallies, introducing Trump. He's Trump's right-hand man. The comedian was handpicked by Trump.
Yeah.
Every other person at the racist rally was handpicked by Trump. Trump even
oh my goodness. This
is where the problem comes into play, because you're trying to disassociate Trump completely from these things that he has done when he was the one who was found liable of sexual assault. You won't even admit that. Well, he's kind of found and then on top of that,
it wasn't convicted of sexual assault. So stop your lies. So stop your spread of misinformation. Shouldn't you get censored for that?
For him to come out and then tell women that he will do blank, no matter if they like it or not, is highly offensive.
Oh, I love it. No. I'm going to respond to that. This whole thing about he's going to do it. He's going to do it whether women like it or not. Play the whole clip. Don't just play that little bit. Like, I know you guys are desperate. Don't just play that little bit. Play the whole clip and quote what he actually said in full rather than just that little snippet.
All right, fine. But let's go to Sasha, who has his hand up.
Yes.
As I heard it correctly, the election has been already decided. And by Tuesday, we will know results, or maybe a couple of days later. What I'm interested now is Lee Rhodes. He wrote, look at his policies versus Kamala's. Shaquille, could you please take his policies versus Kamala to explain that? Because Kamala's policies, she's articulated the best she could, so we have vaguely some ideas about her policies. About Trump's policies, we have no ideas whatsoever, because when he says something, you cannot take it at full value, because many times he's been lying. So whatever he said, maybe he'll do it, maybe he don't. Now, when he says something outrageous, now say, no, he didn't mean that. He meant actually the opposite. So what are the Trump's policies versus Kamala's policies? Shaquille, please explain.
You'll be pleased to know that he actually has a website, and he actually puts his policies on there. Now, I don't want to be a surrogate for Trump, but I can help you out from the few things that I know about his policies versus Kamala Harris's. So he'd like to cut taxes and regulations. Kamala Harris would like to increase taxes and regulations. He says that cutting tax and regulations will lead to more economic output. She says that increasing taxes and increasing government spending will help the middle class because she's able to subsidise their lifestyles. He wants to control the markets by threatening tariffs. If jobs don't come back to America and manufacturing doesn't come back to America, she wants to introduce price controls. So, which works? Well, I don't know. What I do know is that price controls have never worked, but you might think that's a good idea. I don't know. As for the Middle East, she thinks that it should be done through diplomacy. He says it should be done through strength. And same thing with Ukraine, Russia. As for transgender stuff, he wants to curtail severely what they're doing, and he wants to institute bans that prevent biological males from competing in women's sports. She wants them to compete more. He thinks that illegal immigrants and people in prisons shouldn't have access to transgender care because they've decided that they're trans all of a sudden. She says it should be paid for by the taxpayers' dollars.
Hold on. Can I talk about?
I was asked a question about policy. Let me go through them. Immigration. She says that what they need to do is they need to have a pathway to citizenship for depending on who you listen to, the 10 million or 20 million or however many people you think have actually come into the United States. She wants there to be a pathway to citizenship. He says that they've entered illegally and abused the system, and so they should all be deported. And he's going to try and set up a national task force to go around and deport them. And they'll start off with convicted felons and people that commit crimes in the United States. States. She says that they should be given amnesty. I could keep going, but the idea that he doesn't have any policies at all is belied by the fact that in any election, both political candidates will have a website and they'll explain their policies on their website. So the idea that he doesn't have any policies is clearly untrue.
I just want to talk about trans stuff for a second, because it's not that Dems want to trans America. It's that, hold on, just hold on. That trans have shown up in public life at this point in history, and the Republicans are saying that it's the Dems wanting to trans everything. Now, the Republicans, like my buddy Lance, want trans people to go back in the closet, for everybody to say it's a mental illness. And Dems are saying, no, they have to be dealt with as part of society. Now, the whole thing about transgender care for people in prison is appalling, but it's got a 50-year history. I think the first lawsuit, or it's the first time some freaking prisoner said they were trans and went to court to get transgender care was like 1975. There have been cases of this. There was some appalling picture from the 80s of a serial killer who'd gotten a pair of tits on death row and was standing with her boyfriend, I think, also on death row. And people were understandably pissed because this lady got transgender care after killing a bunch of people.
Rick, there were periods of time in my life where I went to private boys' schools, right? And I can tell you now, being the eccentric and rather confident person that I am, if I could have put a dress on and been enrolled in the private girls' school, I would have done it, because I would have gone, yep, absolutely. Right, my 13, 14-year-old teenage self being in the locker rooms of those teenage girls, being the only guy in 1,000 teenage girls, I'm there, sign me up. So if I was, unfortunately, because the other way I'd be in prison, if I was unfortunately convicted of a crime I didn't commit and I was doing a life sentence and I was never getting out, and I'm stuck around a whole heap of big, muscly, tattooed up gangster guys, and all I've got to do is to come out and say, hey, I'm not Shaquille anymore, call me Shaquilla, right? Because I'm now a chick, and lock me up with the chicks. You want to bet your bottom dollar, mate, I'll be a woman. Let me tell you right now.
Let me finish my point, then Jacoby can respond. But what I'm saying is, hanging it all on Kamala Harris, a thing that's been going on for decade after decade, is bullshit. And I understand
because she promotes these policies, and Marxism specifically wants to break the family unit. That's what their stated goal is, to break the family unit, and this is an extension of that very thing. And you trying to say that the Dems aren't trying to trans America, they're just trying to deal with this issue, bullshit. They're trying to trans America, they're going after the kids, they're talking about chopping out the uteruses of teenage girls, cutting off their breasts, sterilizing the boys. It's absolutely outrageous.
You don't even live in this country, and I have a kid in school at this moment. There's nobody sending their child to school to have their uterus or their genitals manipulated at any point. That is BS. That is a talking point. Laugh all you want. That is a BS talking point. What Rick was just talking about.
So it's happening in Australia, Canada, and the UK, but it's not happening in the US.
BS. Let me correct what you're talking about. What Rick was just talking about, 2 cases happened in the prison system. And the 2 cases that he just legitimately pointed out, but you're hanging it all on Kamala Harris. The thing was, this same law was up under Donald Trump. He said absolutely nothing. But what ended up happening is people got so outraged over the transgender individuals, just as they've gotten outraged over homosexuality. It is the same culture war that they're pushing and saying that they're coming to attack you. They're transgendering the America. No, there's less than 1% of the country is transgender.
Let's not making such a big deal out of it. How about that then?
Shut up. Let me finish. So there is less than 1% of the country that's transgender. Them asking for equality is not transing the whole country. It's not doing anything to the country.
They don't want equality. They want extra benefits.
Shut up, please. So they've been around forever. They've been around since the inception of the country. Actually, Christianity was based on a pagan religion, which actually had men rolling around with other men in orgies. So homosexuality and transgenderism has been around. Women could never act in plays. Why? Because of our society. Therefore, there had to be women.
So therefore, Shakespearean actors were trans. You're brilliant. You're brilliant, my friend. You are brilliant.
At this moment, demonizing a section of our society based on your bigotry. So
okay.
I have actual information. So let's talk about it. I'm perfectly fine with passing a bunch of laws that says that if you're under 18 or under some age, no surgery for.
But you're a bigot then, Rick. You're a bigot. That's what we've been told for years. If we say it, we're bigots, but you've come around to that line, so it's okay.
It's already there.
Let me finish. You guys, let me finish. Let me explain how it used to be for trans people in America. There was one guy, a doctor in Pueblo, Colorado, was the only doctor in all of America to perform bottom surgery. And for him to operate on you, this is the 70s, the 80s, into the 90s, you had to move to Pueblo, Colorado. You had to live and work as a woman for a year because this guy, it was his policy, he wouldn't touch you, he wouldn't work on your junk unless you'd been living as a woman. So all the trans people who wanted bottom surgery, which aren't that many people, would move to this shitty town in southern Colorado and live there. And so this one guy, so bottom surgery wasn't a problem because only one guy in America did it. Otherwise, you'd have to go to Thailand or some crap to get it.
And then even now,
so I'm not actually sure, Rick, what the point that you're trying to make.
My point is,
Toby, when you then, Rick, how about I get to say something?
Hold on.
Let me clarify my point.
So we go to Toby, Rick, and then we'll go to someone else, right? To Toby, Rick, back to Toby, then someone else.
My point is that.
No, hang on. Before you respond to me, let me finish what I was going to say. Jatovi's jumped in. So let Jatovi say it, then I will actually respond to you, and then you can respond back.
He was finishing his point.
He wasn't finishing his point. I said I'm not sure what your point was, and then Jatovi jumped in. So let me finish my statement about why I don't understand what his point was before he responds to that.
We both interrupted, so I apologize. So Rick,
let me just clarify what my point is. My point is we had a gatekeeper. It was one guy, but it worked fine for 20, 30 years. I'm fine with gatekeepers. But the idea that everybody's chopping their dicks off, it's less than 0.5% of trans people. And most of them, my wife is friends with somebody whose kid is getting it done. The kid is 30. It took that long for the kid to save up the money to get his junk turned into a vagina. She's over in Thailand. It's horrible, horrible surgery. But nobody should be getting bottom surgery at 17 or 18 or whatever.
Okay, well, you've made your point, and my response. Okay, Toby again.
And the way it works is, yes, you go to your doctor, you go through psychotherapy and everything. You go through the whole medical industry itself you're working with. So what is going on to actually get to that point of doing any type of surgery? It's basically in consultation with your parents, in consultation with your medical professionals that are surrounding you and your doctors. It has nothing to do with Shaq's crazy bigoted idea of, hey, we're just sending them to school and they're coming back as women. That is BS. And it's sad that you're spreading that.
All right. So okay, cool. I'm the bigot. Hey, Steve. So I'm the bigot. Welcome, Steve. You get to see me being my bigoted, racist, sexist, chauvinistic self as usual, right? Because I dare to have a different opinion to some of our progressive friends over here. So, Rick, when I say I'm not sure what your point is, you're talking about what used to happen and you're not having a problem with that. I don't have a problem with it either. I don't have a problem with it. I've got friends that are trans. Okay, I've got friends that trans 20 years ago when it wasn't the vogue thing to do it. I've seen their struggles and their battles and the things that they've gone through. I don't have a problem with that. If that's what they want to do, that's perfectly reasonable. But what we are teaching in schools today and the way it's being handled, I think is wrong. And I don't think that a person
What
should
are we
be
teaching in schools today?
Are you interrupting me again after you've insisted
Yes,
that I don't interrupt you?
You just threw out a blanket
So I
statement.
understand you told me that you feel. I understand that you
what
feel.
we're teaching in schools today.
Okay, I understand that you feel as though you have the right to interrupt others, and you also have the right not to be interrupted, but try to contain yourself. So what we have seen is changes to the school system. What we have seen is parents feeling as though they're locked out of decisions to do with their kids. We've seen a movement. And what we're also seeing, Rick, is when you say things like on previous shows, well, we now recognise that actually the things that we were promoting before may not actually be such a good idea anymore. No, the Dems didn't just sit there and say, okay, look, this isn't a good idea anymore. It came about because of international pressure. It came about because of rule changes in Europe, which is typically on the left of the US, okay? And what the left does is now they recognise it. So now it's okay to talk about. But in the past, anybody who talked about it was a bigot. You can't do that. You can. But you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't sit there and think that any time you've got an opinion and then when you change your mind, it's okay. But when somebody else changes their mind, if they've changed their mind before you, they're a bigot. And what we're seeing is the detransitioners getting attacked by this movement. Okay? And just talk about the school system for a moment. I'm just going to share one thing about Australia. We've got a school called, there's a school in Melbourne, the Methodist Ladies College of Melbourne. Okay? And there's an MLC, Methodist Ladies College in a few other states as well. But this specific one in Melbourne, the girls were told to remove their crosses, that they're no longer allowed to wear crucifixes because it might upset people in their class. And this is a Christian school. It might upset other classmates. While the other classmates were allowed to break the school rules, break the school uniform rules, and wear, rainbow-coloured hair ties, and wear, trans badges and LGBTQ symbols on their necklaces, but you can't wear a cross in a Christian school. So this idea that, oh no, the parents are all, the parents are just overblowing this. No, they're not. Parents are fed up with it. They're fed up with it. And your point, Rick, that it's only 1% of the population. Well, if it's only 1% of the population, then we don't need to have the oversaturation of this in our media. We don't need Dylan Mulvaney in the White House. We don't need to see trans people in every TV show, in every song, et cetera, because if it's such a small part of the community, they don't need that much visibility.
So just to point out, just a real couple of quick things. Having been intimately a part of school systems in multiple different ways, I can stand here and say there is no one teaching in schools, hey, let's all become transgender. That's a BS argument. So what does happen in school, what is the problem going on right now is you have coming across, and this is just in the US, may not be in Australia yet, but what's going across right now in the US is Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty is a very right-wing, highly religious, kind of an extremist organization that's going around pushing nonsense. And that is the
terrible mothers of America.
No, Shaq,
they're the terrible Christian extreme mothers of America.
Let me explain what that nonsense they're pushing, because they are actually the ones who are behind the whole banning these particular books that are preventing people from learning about their own history.
Books. Get real, dude.
No,
they're not banning books.
Yes, they are. Just because you're not here and you're not a part of it, I'm trying to explain.
I think I spend enough time in the United States to know what's going on over there.
About some sisters of the poor in Australia that's doing this whole cross thing that nobody knows about.
This is the best you've got. See how we haven't seen this. We haven't heard this shit for ages, right? We haven't heard this.
Adam,
we haven't heard this for ages from Utopia around the deck.
Let me, you guys just go around in circles. Let somebody say Adam, then me, because I have something new to say.
Well, why couldn't I quickly say something just then?
Because you
Can you spoke? Let me just say so real quick. I would have already finished it. If you stop speaking, I'm sure Adam has got no problem with me saying something.
Let Adam go.
Okay, well let's ask Adam. I'm sure Adam will have no problem with me saying something real quick.
Like you and Sasha did.
Shaquille,
let Adam go.
Say shit.
Thank you. This whole thing, we haven't seen it for a little while now, where Shaquille, you don't live in the United States, so you don't know. So what? That invalidates my arguments? So I noticed that when I criticize Canada, Sasha never says to me, and you're talking over me again. You're talking over me again. Sasha never says to me, you don't live in Canada. I spend more time in the United States than any other country outside of the countries I live in. Right? Okay, I spend more time there. I've got family there. He brings this up now. Doesn't bring it up in other shows. Brings it up now. Why? Because he's losing the argument and he knows it's full of shit.
Not losing the argument at all.
Well, then why bring it up? Then why bring it up? Oh, you don't live in America. You know, things are different in America. You used to say something about tax rates and economic theory. That if I've got an economic theory, we don't live in America. Economics is different in America.
Right, everybody except Adam.
Yeah, it's Adam's turn, but I do have to laugh at Lee.
No, let him talk. Come on,
Adam.
I'll be brief. So I came on a bit late, so it seems like we're talking about transgenderism and the Harris campaign. On transgenderism, I think any reasonable person would agree that whether you're transgender, straight, gay, whatever, you certainly deserve equal rights and equal dignity under the law. That's certainly not controversial. I think where the controversy comes in is in things like transgender athletes in sports, and if we figured out a way that's fair to biological females by allowing biological males to be in sports. And I think that is a concern in some instances, and that has to be addressed. I also think in our schools, and particularly for young students, there in some schools there is policies whereby teachers and administrators do encourage gender affirming care and don't inform the parents, and that's just plain wrong. So nobody's saying transgender individuals are not entitled to the same rights and privileges as everyone else and shouldn't be treated equally and never discriminated against. But there's concerns by parents that in some jurisdictions, not all, are legitimate, and there's concerns about sports. Now, as far as Harris goes, I don't know who's going to win the election, but one thing about Harris that is concerning is, look, she was the most liberal member of the Senate. She was a fan of defunding the police. She did support a bail fund for the Minnesota rioters. She, in my view, supports open borders. And she has said things, whether it's about Christmas or Columbus Day, that are so inflammatory. So I think that, and the way she treated Brett Kavanaugh was horrible. So I think that there's a cultural divide here. And I'm not sure which way it's going to go. But Harris has not been a good candidate. Trump certainly hasn't been great either. But what Harris represents is not something that I believe is good for this country, and that's why I'm hoping that Trump wins.
All right, my turn. All right, so let me make a couple related points. There are 130,000 schools in the United States, and teachers are idiots. So let me explain. Teaching is a little bit like working in a bar. It's for people who have low ambition, and not everybody. I've had brilliant teachers, but if you look at the standardized test scores of teachers, they are the lowest of any of the professions. But again, nothing against teachers. Some teachers are I love teachers, but you've got 130,000 schools in the U.S. Each school is like a little laboratory for policy. And in fact, LA has a thing called Dance of the Lemons, where you can't fire crappy administrators. You just move them to a school where the parents don't speak English, so they don't know who to talk to. They can't get them fired. So out of 130,000 schools, some schools are going to do stupid shit because the people in charge are kind of idiots. And that's
Rick, schools should be teaching kids math, English. They should be teaching critical thinking, logical reasoning, and writing, and giving them practical skills to be competitive in the marketplace. They should be out of the business of social issues. Our country lags behind other countries in reading proficiency, math proficiency. That's the job of schools, not for schools to be talking about gender affirming care with kids without notifying parents. That's not appropriate. And no one is saying that we should be discriminating against transgender people or allowing that type of care, but it should be in consultation with your family and not a school.
All I'm saying is don't be surprised. Hold on. Let me finish my point. All I'm saying is do not be surprised when a school like Shaq was describing, a Christian school gets rid of crosses. Don't be surprised when individual schools do something weird or dumb, because sometimes dumb people end up in charge of a school.
Yeah, so if you want to have your little mini laboratory in every school's little mini laboratory, go experiment on your own child. Don't experiment on mine, and don't tell me that I have to let you do it, and then call me a bigot when I oppose it. And don't send the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security after parents who are complaining at school board meetings and calling them domestic terrorists because they're unhappy about things that are going on in the school system. How about that?
It
didn't happen. Okay.
We have
both of you.
Sasha.
Both of you. Hold on.
Yes, Sasha was up.
Both of you. Both. And I'm sorry, but
There's three of us.
things Adam just said, and everything along those lines. Hold on a second, Adam. Along those lines, and I'm going to turn it over to Sasha as well. But Adam, along those lines, something you said that actually I have to push back on, and Rick as well, because I got a lot of folks, including family members, that are teachers. So I've got mad respect for teachers and the education institution. So I'm not convinced that there are a lot of bad teachers. I would say there are a lot of good teachers and people that chose to do teaching for very noble reasons, and they're not trying to dictate their views or dictate anything else on people. And all along those lines, I would actually argue
that's such a poor argument, Mark. It's such a poor argument.
Would you let me finish that? Hold on. I would actually argue. Hold on. I would actually also argue that there are people, to Adam's point, that are actually, because I actually think, well, one, I'm one of the few people here that has actually worked with the standardized company, and I've said that before and everything, and I've got issues with standardized testing, even though I literally work for one of the biggest standardized testing companies in the country. Measurement is one of the biggest ones, but I do have issues with the way that they run standardized testing, because it'd be biased in a lot of different ways, and we can go into a whole show about what's going on with standardized testing. But I would also argue with Adam that to some degree, education and school is supposed to be about critical thinking, and they are supposed to be debating some of these issues and everything. Now, maybe that's on a higher level, but I would actually argue that that's something that they should be doing on a regular basis, is having their opinions. They don't have to agree with each other, but they should be able to articulate critical thinking and the reasons that they back whatever positions they back.
If they are going to argue about social issues in an elementary, middle school, or high school, they better present all sides of the issue, not one side of the issue. And what you see in academia is precisely the opposite. You see one side dominating, and that does not develop critical thinking skills. That develops ideology. In fact, it undermines critical thinking skills. You show me a school where they're teaching gender affirming care, where they give empirical data that is contrary to their ideological views, and I'll say yes to it. But that's not really what happens. I'm in academia, and I see it every day.
Well, I'm in
your argument, Mark. Your argument, Mark, was such a poor.
It's Sasha's next, but I got friends in academia too, and I have seen people that present both sides and everything. I would argue to some degree that sometimes people in academia can be biased one way or the other, depending on how their academia experience has been, because I've seen people that have literally presented both sides in academia, whether that's Duke, whether that's North Carolina Central, whether that's a number of other universities that I have direct associations with and everything. So I do sometimes think that we are biased based on our experience in our academia experiences, because I've seen people that literally, I've got a friend that is pro-reparations, but he presents the non-reparation side in his classroom.
Sasha.
Take it away, Sasha.
Adam, I agree with everything you just said, but I will go a little bit farther than that. If you remember this pro-Palestinian protests on campuses in the United States just a few months ago, I don't know actually where are they now. There are not too many protests. What's happened to them? They maybe they are not paid anymore to count these protests, because I remember a picture of two girls coming to this protest, I think in Columbia University, and one asked another one, "What are you protesting against today?" Because they didn't even know why they came there. They were just paid, and they're not paid a lot of money. They probably $50 a day. So they're coming there, talking to each other. Say, "What are you protesting against? Remind me, please." Now, these boys and girls are being prepared by American school systems. They have social studies where they are learning from the grade 1 what is anti-Semitism and Jews and how to hate them and how to come to the demonstrations and so on. So this is already, what do you think that all these thousands of students who were protesting against Israel, do you think that there are Palestinians? Absolutely not. There are not so many Palestinian students in United States. It's mostly students who were product of defective U.S. school system. That's what it is. That's what they're spending their time to study this ugly social studies, which are not even real studies. They're pseudo studies. Instead of learning how to write, how to read, how to do math, they don't spend much time on that, rather on social studies. Thank you.
So let me. So I was before you, Toby. I was before you. I was before you.
Shaq, I had my hand up the whole time before you, and you kept interjecting anybody. So I was going next. You can go after me. So real quick, with what Adam brought up about the school, the dealing with transgenders, transgender individuals in sports. That's actually extremely debatable and extremely still one of the toughest conversations, because trying to figure out how to deal with all in that situation, because there aren't that many transgender athletes across the country. And that includes both transgender males and transgender females. So you cannot really truthfully have a league of any kind that is just transgender individuals, and having them compete in the sport based around the rules from the IOC, the NCAA, and all the other companies that have actually put those rules in legitimate based on legitimate science. Those are where those transgender individuals are working under to try and compete in their particular sports, which they identify as. However, there is still science, and there's still information that we still have to derive from that, and we still have to work through that debate. So that's a debatable thing, and that's something that we should be working towards as an equal thing for both all cis males and females, all transgender males and females, all those that will be involved in athletics. That is something that is working through the process. In terms of the school system itself, quote unquote teaching, as Rick pointed out, there are multiple school systems throughout the whole country. There are also multiple homeschool systems throughout the country. Schools themselves in the school system have a generalized set of things they have to work through. Homeschools, they don't. There's actually a school that teaches Nazism that is a homeschool in our country. Dear God, Shaq, go on mute, please. Shaq, go on mute.
There freaking is, because like three lunatics can get together.
So with homeschool situations, there are no actual rules and regulations, so individuals can teach whatever they want to. And yes, there is a school that does teach Nazism as a homeschool setup. Regardless of you laughing, Shaq, this shows your ignorance in this situation. So please, all right. And ignorance just means lack of knowledge. I'm not calling you names. I'm just saying that you don't know.
I'm aware of the definition of ignorance.
Shaq,
thank you very much.
Let me finish. So in that situation, transgenderism is not being taught in a school. Acceptance of others is being taught.
Are you going to take up the rest of the show?
God,
to make sure I don't speak? You've been going 3 minutes already. I could have boiled an egg.
If you would stop interrupting me, I could finish my point. And you could talk. So again, transgenderism is not being taught in schools. It's being taught that, hey, this person is different, just like Sesame Street has done since its inception as well, because Sesame Street actually has a transgender character on there. So these things are taught as an acceptance. As we agree, Adam, everybody should be treated equally, regardless of whoever they love.
How about Steve then Shaq? How about Steve then Shaq?
Poor Toby, he's only had 4 minutes. He hasn't finished yet.
I was just going to finish this final point. And
you want another 4 minutes to finish the point? Yeah.
In what I'm Shaq, can you please just go on mute?
Rick interjected too, didn't he? Rick interjected as well, but okay.
We're going to end the show this way because we're going to. I'm just going to have to keep on talking.
Using up all the freaking time with this bullshit.
I know. If he could stop over talking me and let me finish my point. I'm just trying to get done.
One sentence. Say the sentence.
Dear God, Rick, you're interrupting me now.
Just say it, shit.
I can't say it because you keep talking. Go on mute. Dear God.
Finish the point, Toby. Then Steve needs to wrap up the show.
All I'm trying to say, these things are not being taught. Students are not being paid. What it is individuals are being taught equality, and that when people who have had some type of privilege see equality coming, that feels like something's being taken away. So it is not being taught in school. It's just equality is being taught.
All right, now Steve, then
Steve.
Shaq.
Thank you.
Steve.
Well,
sorry, I'm just going to wake up again.
I've only
Sorry.
got a minute. I've got to drop a new meeting, but it's always good to see Adam Lamparello and and everybody. And I mean, my final take is that we're down to final day of early voting in North Carolina. 53% of Republicans have voted, 40% of Democrats, and about 40% of the unaffiliated. So it's going to be interesting to see how this breaks out. I think the race is going to be a closer race than expected. We will find out on election day how accurate the polls were, whether Trump will outperform his polls. And I think if he wins Pennsylvania and Georgia, I think Pennsylvania is critical. I think if either Harris wins Pennsylvania or Trump, then all they got to do is win, 2 or 3 more states. So I think we'll know on election night if Pennsylvania and Georgia go to Trump and North Carolina, then I think he'll be the 47th president. I think if Harris pulls off a miracle and wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, maybe Wisconsin, who knows what's going to happen with Virginia. So don't count her out. She's the underdog, but you never say never. So get your popcorn out, guys. This is going to be a long night. And we'll have some good stuff to talk about on Wednesday, November 6th. What's going to be interesting to see what happens with the House, what happens with the Senate. And God, I had a nightmare the other day that Mark Robinson won. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, that'd be awesome! Come on now, a black guy in the governor's residence. Come on now.
I think Steinmaster will win. I think he's already starting to pack up the boxes, put together a cabinet, and
I think.
But guys, when we bring on Governor Josh Stein, we got to be more tempered. You can't bring that guy on there and act the way we do. I mean, he's a calm cucumber, man. Nothing can phase this guy, the next governor of North Carolina. He's as calm as they come. And Adam Lamparello, you'd like him. He's a level-headed guy. He's going to be a good governor, but he's a very calm guy, and even Republicans like him, actually. So he's not out there crazy, doing really crazy stuff. I think he'll be a good governor of the 8th largest state. And I'm looking forward to seeing that day happen. I've known him for 20 years, and he's a good man, and I think he'll do a good job. I'm going to run, guys. You guys.
Hang around for me to respond to you. Hang around for me to respond to you very quickly, and then I'll respond to the others. So I like Josh Stein myself. Obviously, I like Mark Robinson more because I know the man. I've met the man, and I'm on the Republican side. I think there's no doubt that Josh Stein's going to win the governor's race, no question. I believe you're right that Pennsylvania will be a bellwether. If the Democrats are going to win, it's because the polls are wrong, and the polls have overcompensated for their prior polling errors. If the polls have a similar sort of error as what they've had in the past, then I would say that would mean that not only would Trump win, but it would be a devastating win. We don't know. Nobody can read the tea leaves. Certainly the polls, the betting markets would indicate that Trump's more likely to win than not by a pretty big margin, 20 points. But we're not going to know that until then. Okay, so a couple of points. Mark.
I gotta run. Happy Diwali. I'm wearing my gold shroud today. Be safe. See you on Monday. And great to see you, Sasha.
God bless.
Well, I'll be in touch. Thank you.
So Mark, to your point about you know teachers, you've got friends that teach. Look, I've got plenty of friends in the police. That doesn't mean that because I like my friends and family members of the police officers, that therefore there's nothing wrong with policing. The policing system and the system of justice needs to be reformed all over the Western world. So this idea is, well, I've got friends who are teachers. The system, no bullshit, right? Secondly, no, you don't have time to respond. No, you don't have time because I've got to try and squeeze everything in because Toby took up so much time with its rambling. So to Sasha's point, it's a pity he's left. I take it that Sasha is now a Republican, because if he has a look at the Palestinian protesters and all this sort of stuff, where is it coming from? It's coming from the squad. It's coming from the progressive side of politics that are incensing these kids to do it. You're not seeing Republican kids jumping out there and burning flags and carrying on like that and showing disrespect to the country. So clearly, and I'm not even going to bother responding to you, Toby, because your comments, you're so one-eyed and so self-righteous, you can't accept anything from anybody else. Rick, you can have the final word.
Right. The main problem with teachers and teaching is that they're under-supported and undercompensated. So I've had a number of teachers who were brilliant and saints, but it was despite the conditions. In Albuquerque, the last time I was in high school in the 80s, teachers were getting paid $2,000 a month. Even back then, that was despicable and barely survivable.
Wouldn't school choice be a really good idea then? Hey, wouldn't letting private enterprise compete be a really good idea? Because maybe they could produce better teachers. Maybe giving parents a choice in the matter might be better. Especially considering
away from the public schools and
good. The public schools are failing. The public schools are doing a bad job, Rick. Look, here's the thing. You don't pour money into something that's failing. Public schools are failing. We know that they're failing. And here's one example of why they're failing. Today, or we go before COVID. Before COVID, we have a generation of people that are graduating high school with worse results in English, maths, science, etc. than what not just their parents had, but their grandparents, and in some cases their great-grandparents. Those generations lived through World War I and World War II with rationing and all of the rest of it. And yet they've got better results than what the current kids are getting. That is a failure of the school system, and the Teachers Federation or the Teachers Union should be bloody ashamed themselves for prioritising trans and other issues over the core subject.
One decent point. The Teachers Union, Randy Weingarten, I think she's kind of an asshole. But the Sputnik generation, they had their asses educated off of them. We had a huge push. We didn't call it STEM, but it was a huge push to teach the shit out of everybody in public schools. It worked great. And now we have like a big segment of the Republicans who want to defund and suck resources out of
absolutely, because as you've just said, the system's not working. Look at the non-woke countries of the world. Look at the Middle East. Have a look at the former the Eastern Bloc countries in Europe. Have a look at China. Have a look at all the non-woke countries and see their educational results, and have a look at what we're doing in the West. We're failing because of our own stupidity.
Let me explain. The one thing, and I don't want to speak for Mark, I think the one thing that set Mark off at the beginning was when teachers were called stupid, ignorant, and all this other stuff. And that's the
I apologize
I think,
for that.
Rick, when you came back and corrected it, it was perfect. That's where the issue is. And
what say what we like. You're going to get offended. Who gives a shit? What if you offend us? We've got to suck it up. You call us Nazis and racists and bigots. You called me a bigot. You called me a bigot. But Rick has to apologize for calling teachers stupid. How good's that?
You're not going to talk over me. Let me finish.
Really quick,
I am, and I did.
I got to get to the other show and everything. The other thing that I did not get to, that I wanted to get to.
Really quickly.
Let Mark talk. Let Mark talk.
What Rick talked about is Rick said underfunding of schools. What we just pointed out was how all these other places were funding the schools. These places have in China, they fully fund these schools. These teachers aren't having to struggle as much as they are in the U.S. And that's a critical issue because we take.
So you just have, I'll bring my friends and I'll get your kids into schools in China.
Stop talking over me, Shaq. Stop talking over me.
You said your kids into schools in China.
Hold on. We got to end the show, Jacoby. The other thing I was going to say really quickly is that I hated if we didn't get to the AI, and we had a case